Have you ever felt like you're chasing after everything and yet it still feels like you're falling behind? In a fast-paced world, full of demands and noise, it's easy to lose ourselves from ourselves. Anxiety, emotional burnout, comparisons, distractions. It feels like living has become a struggle to merely survive. But what if I told you there's an ancient philosophy that could be the key to turning this game around? No, it's not cheap self-help. And it's not some mystical guru talk either. It's about transforming the way you see life, how you react to difficulties, and how you find peace even in chaos. We're talking about Stoicism. Yes, the very same philosophy that shaped great leaders, philosophers, and thinkers. But now, adapted for you here in 2025. This isn't just another empty motivational video. Here, you'll learn to recreate yourself, to develop resilience, to cultivate tranquility, to understand your purpose, and to live with more self-control, even when everything seems to be falling apart. We're going to blend ancient wisdom with modern struggles, philosophy with practice, spirituality with existence. If you're seeking a life with more authenticity, inner freedom, and, above all, self-love, then this is your place. Get ready to dive into a complete guide to Stoic transformation, not to become someone else, but to discover who you truly are. The art of not caring. You don't have to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders to be a good person. In fact, many people are exhausted precisely because they try to please everyone except themselves. The art of not caring isn't about apathy, it's about emotional wisdom. It's about intentionally choosing where it's worth investing your energy and where it's best to simply let go. The Stoics taught this masterfully: focus on what you can control and release what's beyond your reach. Epictetus said that freedom is born when we stop depending on external approval. And that doesn't mean living in isolation or being selfish, it means living authentically. When you understand that you don't need to be everything to everyone, you begin to recreate yourself toward your own essence. And this process is liberating. Suddenly, your peace becomes a priority, and that changes everything. Perhaps you're at a point in life where everything seems to affect you too much. A harsh word, a criticism, a comparison online, and just like that, your energy drains away. But does all of that really deserve to have such power over you? Stoic philosophy teaches us that suffering isn't in things themselves, but in how we react to them. This requires self-control, and it can be cultivated like a muscle. The next time something irritates or hurts you, try this exercise. Take a deep breath. Observe your thoughts as if you were an outsider, and ask yourself, is this really important, or am I just reacting on autopilot? This small space between stimulus and response is where your freedom resides. And the deeper you delve into this, the more tranquility you gain. Caring about everything is like trying to embrace the ocean. In the end, you'll drown. Living to please everyone, to meet every expectation, and to prove your worth all the time is an invitation to frustration and the loss of self. When we live through the eyes of others, we lose sight of our own reflection. Sartre called this bad faith, when we choose to deny who we are to fit into what's expected of us. But you know what's liberating? Stopping asking permission to exist. Stopping molding your life to others' opinions. This is self-love in action. When you honor who you are without needing to justify yourself all the time, you begin to live with more purpose and presence. And this doesn't push people away, in the contrary, it attracts those who vibrate with the same truth. If you want to start living this freedom in practice, start small. Say no when your body needs rest. Don't over-explain yourself. Allow yourself to make choices simply because they make sense to you, not because they'll please someone else. Take time to listen to yourself, to observe yourself. The practice of Stoicism isn't a distant theory, it can live in simple daily attitudes. A good book to delve deeper into this is The Courage to be Disliked, which blends philosophy with psychology in a light and direct way. It's also worth reflecting on authors like Seneca and even Buddha, who, with his middle way, proposes a balance between giving to the world and preserving oneself. Ultimately, not caring about what robs you of your peace is the deepest form of care. And perhaps that's exactly what you need to continue this journey with more lightness and resilience. The art of self-love. Loving yourself might seem like a simple concept, but in practice, it's one of the greatest personal revolutions anyone can experience. Because true self-love isn't just looking in the mirror and saying I love myself, it's knowing how to respect yourself when no one is watching. Setting boundaries, valuing your processes, acknowledging your flaws without self-destructing. Carl Rogers spoke of unconditional positive regard, meaning accepting yourself with all your shadows and light. And this doesn't prevent you from growing, in the contrary, it strengthens you. After all, only those who fully accept themselves have the courage to recreate themselves. To love yourself is to stop fighting who you are and start taking care of yourself as you would someone you love very much. And between us, this requires practice, patience, and forgiveness. Every single day. The problem is that we were taught that putting ourselves first is selfish. But this idea is distorted. What's truly selfish is expecting others to fill voids that we haven't even taken care of ourselves. Abraham Maslow, with his famous pyramid, showed that before thinking about achieving great things, we need a solid emotional foundation, and that includes self-love. Aristotle also spoke of this by linking well-being to virtue and balance. If you live at war with yourself, you'll hardly build healthy relationships with the world. True love starts within. And no, that's not an Instagram quote, it's a philosophy of life. When you truly value yourself, your decisions change. You stop begging for emotional crumbs and start demanding banquets of respect. Perhaps you're trying to be everything to everyone, while abandoning yourself in the process. Maybe you smile on the outside, but you're exhausted on the inside. Right now, more than any advice, you need presence with yourself. It's time to listen to yourself with kindness. Jean-Paul Sartre would say that authenticity is born when we take responsibility for being who we are, even if it displeases others. And this requires freedom, not the kind that depends on external circumstances, but the kind that comes from a heart at peace with its own truth. The freedom to say, "This is me," without shame, without guilt. It's this kind of love that sustains you on bad days, that embraces you when no one else understands. And it doesn't appear out of nowhere, it's cultivated like a garden every day. If you want to start practicing this love today, start with something simple. List 3 things you like about yourself and no physical attributes. Okay? Could be your creativity, your faith, your ability to get up even when everything falls apart. Then, choose one small action each day that honors who you are. It could be declining an invitation that drains you, saying a calm prayer, taking a long bath, or writing a letter to yourself. The philosopher Ayn Rand called this rational egoism, consciously seeking what is good for you. This doesn't alienate you from the world, it prepares you to be in it with more presence and less burden. Self-love is the foundation of resilience, self-control, and tranquility. It's what will sustain you in the next steps of your journey, especially when you start questioning your place in the world. Finding purpose and fulfillment through existentialism. What if everything you learned about the meaning of life was upside down? Existentialism bravely drops this bomb. Perhaps life doesn't come with a ready-made purpose. Perhaps purpose needs to be created by you. Jean-Paul Sartre was direct when he said that existence precedes essence, meaning we are born and then we build who we are. That's scary, isn't it? But it's also liberating, because it means you're not trapped by a pre-written script. You can recreate yourself, change paths, make new choices. Of course, this requires responsibility. Freedom, according to Sartre, is both a gift and a burden. But it's precisely in that space between what the world has given you and what you do with it that your true purpose is born. Life can seem absurd at times, and this is where Albert Camus comes in with his raw and courageous vision. He describes the philosophy of the absurd as the confrontation between the human thirst for meaning and an indifferent universe. It sounds bleak, but what Camus proposes is a form of resistance to rebel against the emptiness and create meaning anyway. He uses the myth of Sisyphus, man condemned to push a boulder uphill eternally, as a symbol. And he says we should imagine Sisyphus happy. Why? Because he accepts his condition and, even so, he lives. This idea teaches us resilience no matter what the world says. What matters is what you decide to do with your experience. Even without guarantees. Even without applause. Only with the strength of choosing to be who you are. And where does self-love fit into this story? In absolutely everything. Because when you stop looking for a ready-made purpose and start building one that resonates with you, you value yourself. You stop comparing yourself to others' journeys and begin to honor your own. Existentialism invites us to live with authenticity, to make conscious choices, to take responsibility for the consequences, and to accept that living also means failing. This is living with depth. It's not easy. Sometimes you'll want to run away, hide, shift the blame. Sartre himself called this bad faith. But when you look in the mirror and accept the life I'm living is a result of the choices I've made, you grow. And you grow a lot. That's when your life starts to make sense from the inside out and not the other way around. If you feel lost, aimless, without a clear mission, perhaps this is the turning point. How about stopping looking for a grand purpose out there and starting to see meaning in the small things that are already part of your routine? Taking care of your family, serving someone, creating something with your own hands, praying sincerely, studying, writing, teaching. All these things can contain an enormous purpose if they are done with intention. And this is profoundly existentialist living as one who builds meaning in the concrete reality of life. When you connect with this, you feel more tranquility, more freedom, more self-control. And the best part, you start to realize that your worth was never in what you have, but in what you are capable of doing with what you have. Meaning is not found. It is created with courage, presence, and faith. Stoicism, a guide to tranquility and resilience. If there's one philosophy that stands the test of time and remains relevant in the digital age, it's Stoicism. And it's not because it's trendy, but because it speaks directly to the heart of those who want to live with more depth. Seneca, in his letters to Lucilius, gives us advice that seems to have been written yesterday. It is not that we have a short time, but that we waste much of it. The Stoic idea isn't to deny emotions, but to recreate yourself from what you feel. When you understand that adversity isn't an enemy, but a tool for refinement, everything changes. Suffering ceases to be an end and becomes a means. With every difficulty, a chance for growth. It's like strengthening the muscles of the soul. And, let's face it, real life needs this, not magic formulas but strong principles. One of the greatest gifts of Stoicism is clarity about the present moment. We live worried about tomorrow and dwelling on yesterday, but we forget to live in the present, the only real time. Seneca teaches us that procrastination is a waste of life and that tranquility is born when we learn to value the instant. This applies to everything: time with loved ones, projects we put off, even hurried prayers. Being present is an act of resistance against a world that lives in a constant rush. And in this decelerated rhythm, we find a rare kind of freedom, that of no longer living at the mercy of the clock or external pressures. We become masters of our own time, and that is power. But Stoicism is also about people. It's about relating with more empathy, listening more than talking, understanding before judging. Seneca said that true friendship is born from virtue and that relationships are a training ground for the soul. Have you ever stopped to think how many arguments could be avoided with a little more self-control? Anger, for example, is one of the greatest thieves of peace. And the Stoics knew it. They trained their minds not to react on impulse, but with reason. Practicing this today is almost like being a real-life Jedi. You know that moment when everything inside you wants to explode, but you choose to take a deep breath and respond calmly? That's Stoicism in action. That's emotional resilience, and it's a silent but powerful force. Finally, Stoicism invites us to redefine what wealth, success, and happiness truly are. It's not about having a lot, but about not needing a lot to be well. True Stoic wealth is internal wisdom, virtue, peace of mind. They spoke of traveling to the soul, that is, seeking new horizons within oneself. And sometimes, changing the external environment helps with this: a retreat, time away from social media. A new book I recommend on the shortness of life by Seneca. But the true journey is inward. It's recognizing that death is part of life, that many of our fears are mental inventions, and that living in the present is a daily decision. Stoicism is not a cold armor, it's a firm shelter amidst the chaos. And perhaps it's what you needed most to navigate 2025 with purpose, steadfastness, and peace. Now that you know the principles of Stoicism and have deeply immersed yourself in this path of self-discovery, let me ask you, will you continue reacting to external pressures, or will you start living with purpose? Will you remain a hostage to others' expectations, or will you choose the freedom to be who you are? Will you let life run you over? Or will you take the wheel with self-control, faith, and resilience? Perhaps the answer won't come now, and that's okay. Transformation doesn't happen with a magic wand. Step by step, choice by choice. But one thing is certain: you don't need a perfect world to find peace. You need a strengthened mind, a heart aligned with what matters, and the courage to recreate yourself whenever necessary. And let's face it, 2025 can be your most authentic year if you want it to be. So, how about starting today? Pick up that book you haven't finished, write about what you feel, reflect on what's out of your control, and let it go. Practice the art of not caring about what doesn't build you up. Love yourself enough not to abandon yourself anymore. Live with lightness but with firmness. Stoicism isn't about being invincible, it's about being unshakable in what truly matters. If this content resonated with you, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and share it with someone else who is also on this search for meaning. Here, we don't offer ready-made formulas. Walk together, learning to live with more intention, faith, and tranquility.